chapter 13 as the basis for this series. We've done already love is patient, love is kind. This week we're kind of mashing a few of them together. We have love does not envy, love is not proud, love does not boast. And I've kind of just summed those up together to say love is unselfish. Love is unselfish. Now, how many of you all have heard of the TV show Snapped? It's called Snapped. It's about people who kind of snap. It's a documentary. Okay, none of you guys watched that. You have never watched it, but you've seen it? Okay. Well, my claim to fame, no, this is infamy, but anyway, there's a young lady that I knew and worked with, and she was 16 years old when I met her, and she ended up being on that show. She's got her own episode. But this young lady, when she came to the facility that we were working at, I remember her because she was probably one of the most physically attractive young ladies I've seen in a while. She's a beautiful young lady. But she was one of those girls that, and I'll apologize here right up front. We're going to keep it real today, all right? She was one of those young ladies that people probably whisper about. Her shirts were a little too tight and maybe cut a little too low, and the skirts were a little too short. And she was always around and with the boys, and there were rumors of things that maybe she was doing that weren't so good. And it was easy for people to look down their nose at this young lady. And I remember sitting down with her and saying, "Bree, what do you want? What do you want out of life?" Her mother was a drug addict on the street, doing things to support her habit that were not good. She didn't know who her father was. And I asked her, "What do you want?" And she said, "I just want to be loved. I just want to be loved." And we were talking about some of the things that she had been doing, and she said, I know it's not really love, but for just a few minutes when I'm doing these things, I feel like somebody wants me." Well, she went on to leave the facility that I was working at and was placed into a foster home. And unfortunately, the foster father had his own brokenness that he was dealing with, but he ended up getting involved in an inappropriate relationship with her and convincing her that the only way that they could be together and be happy was if his wife was out of the way. And so he went on a trip, and he had planned this all out, and he told her, I love you. If you want us to be together, you've got to take care of my wife. What's love got to do with this? And so this young lady who was so desperate to be loved, to be wanted, to be needed, went into the room where her foster mother was sleeping, and she stabbed her over 160 times. She is currently serving a life sentence and eligible for parole in 30 years. And I can't help but remember sitting across the table from her, looking in her eyes and saying, "What do you want out of life?" And hearing her say, "I just want to be loved. I just want someone to love me." The pain in life left her lost, confused, broken, and desperately reaching out and grabbing for this love that she thought was there. But it was only a phantom. But the truth is, she's not alone. Maybe her story is extreme, but I think of what Thoreau said when he says that most people live lives of quiet desperation. And I think of how many people around us are hurting, looking for love. You see, we all have this core need to be seen, to be valued, to be wanted, to have worth, to be loved. This, I believe, is something that was put in us from our Creator because it is a longing for who He is, because God is love. And so there is something that can only be satisfied through connection with our Creator. But through our brokenness and through our trials of life, we reach out for things and we grab a hold of things and we pursue things that really never could and never were meant to satisfy. You see, because life is hard sometimes. Life is painful sometimes. And the truth that we hear this unspoken message, and I believe that the world does a good job of pushing this message on us. And the message is, you're on your own and no one's coming to save you. And so if you're going to get something, if you're going to get help, if you're going to get far, you better save yourself. That's the message that the world sends to us. If you want something, you better take it. Don't expect anybody to give you anything. But the truth is that this is a lie. And it flies in the face of what Jesus says. You know, Jesus taught us how to live. I like to say it this way. You know, Jesus didn't come to teach us how to be Christians. He came to show us what it looked like to be fully human in relationship to God. And Jesus said about life, he says, the person who seeks, Matthew chapter 16, verse 25, he says, the person who seeks to save their life, the person who seeks to says, I got to get mine. I've got to take care of me. I've got to look out for me. I've got to make sure I have all that the person who seeks to save their life will lose it. But the one who loses his life, who gives himself away, the one who lays down his life for my sake will discover what it means to live. You see, selfishness is one of the most basic human instincts. You don't have to teach a little baby to go, mine, mine. You know, they just kind of do that. And it's wired within us to go after, to satisfy, to gratify, to reach after self. But I'll give you Herschel's definition of selfishness. Love, remember we're talking love is unselfish. So Herschel's definition of selfishness is this. Selfishness is the illegitimate pursuit of legitimate needs apart from trusting in God's provision. It's the illegitimate pursuit of legitimate needs. So my young lady, she has a legitimate need to be loved. That's a legitimate need. But the pursuit of it through being with someone else's husband or being with, that's an illegitimate pursuit of a legitimate need. And so many times, if you look at how selfishness leads us, it always causes us to go after in illegitimate ways the satisfaction of legitimate needs that we have. And the challenge and the call for us as believers is truly to place our trust in God to meet our needs. You see, the needs are real. That need to feel value, the need to feel like you have purpose. And so many times we fall into the traps of feeling like by going after those other things that we can satisfy what only God can satisfy. You see, we were created, the way that God made us is we don't like, our minds don't like things that we can't understand, things that we can't process, things that we can't comprehend. And there are things that happen in life that are hard and that are painful. And so we seek to try to come up, well, why is this happening? You see, a lot of times we worked with young children who experienced abuse and neglect. And many times they would say that somehow this must be my fault. that my father treated me wrong or my mother wasn't there. Somehow it must be something wrong with me. There must be, and because we try to understand what's going on around us. And so we create these mental templates that say, this is how the world works. And then we come to Christ. And I would like to suggest to us that really walking in relationship with God is really the process of unlearning the things that our brokenness and that life has taught us, and relearning and rediscovering what it means to truly live, resetting those templates of our mind. So, the call to discipleship. You know, we live in a country that still, majority of people would say, I'm a Christian. Do you know that it's possible to be a Christian and not be a disciple of Christ? See, to be a Christian simply means I've placed my faith in Jesus. I believe Jesus was the Son of God. I believe that he is. Are you okay? We have one of our brothers has had a real serious tragedy that just took place. We need to stop and pray for him, if you all are okay with that. You mind pausing the live feed?